The power of consistency is easy to underestimate. Little things look too small to matter, too ordinary to change a life. Yet the little things you repeat every day quietly build the person you become and the results you see. Consistency turns the invisible into the inevitable. I learned this truth slowly. In my 20s, I chased inspiration like a lightning bolt, starting projects with a surge of excitement and then dropping them when the first thrill faded. I told myself I needed better timing or more motivation. What I really needed was consistency, steady action long after the mood had left. I didn't understand then that greatness grows out of ordinary faithfulness. The small choice you make today, if repeated tomorrow and the next day, becomes a force far stronger than any burst of passion. Think of a drip of water on stone. 1 drop means nothing. 10 drops mean little. But years of steady dripping can carve a canyon. Consistency has that quiet strength. It doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. But it never stops. And in the end, the stone moves. The same pattern shows up in health. I once believed I needed a perfect fitness plan before I could begin. Then a mentor challenged me to start with a daily 10-minute walk. No excuses, no missed days. 10 minutes felt trivial. But a month later, I was walking 30. A year later, I had energy I hadn't felt in a decade. That single small habit, maintained with consistency, transformed my body far more than any dramatic workout I had tried and abandoned. Little things, big wins. Money follows the same law. Saving a few dollars a day hardly seems worth the effort until you let time work. Years ago, I set up an automatic transfer of a modest amount into a separate account. At first, it felt like nothing. But month after month, year after year, the balance grew. What seemed insignificant became a safety net, then an investment fund, then a source of freedom. Consistency multiplied those little deposits into a future I could rely on. Relationships thrive the same way. Grand gestures make great stories, but it's the daily consistency of kindness, attention, and honesty that builds lasting love and friendship. I remember when my father decided to call his own father every Sunday evening. No speeches, no drama, just a check-in. Weeks turned into years, and that small rhythm became a lifeline of connection. When my grandfather passed away, those simple calls stood out as priceless treasures. It wasn't a single conversation that built their bond. It was the consistency of many small ones. Consistency begins in the mind. What you feed your thoughts each day becomes the atmosphere of your life. I used to start mornings by scrolling through news and social media, and my mind felt scattered before breakfast. Then I replaced that with 10 quiet minutes of reflection and reading. The shift was small but steady, and over time it changed my outlook. My thinking became clearer, my mood more stable, my creativity sharper. The daily choice to guard those first moments of the day reshaped the whole day again and again. But here's the catch: consistency rarely feels exciting in the moment. It can feel plain, even boring. That's why many people abandon good habits. They mistake excitement for progress. They chase novelty instead of mastery. Real change often feels like nothing at all, until suddenly it feels like everything. The seed breaks ground slowly, but when the tree finally stands tall, no one doubts the process. I remember a conversation with a successful entrepreneur who told me the best decision of his career was simply showing up at his desk at the same time every morning for 20 years. He said, "Most people look for a magic move. I just kept doing the small things until they added up to something people call luck." His story echoes what I've seen again and again. Consistency creates the opportunities others call coincidence. Consistency is also the antidote to fear. When you know you will take the next step no matter how you feel, fear loses leverage. There were mornings when I wanted to quit writing, when doubt whispered that my work didn't matter. But I had committed to write a single page every day. Some pages were weak, some strong, but the discipline kept me moving. Years later, those daily pages became books and speeches that touched thousands. The power wasn't in the brilliance of any single day. It was in the consistency of many ordinary ones. How do you build that kind of steady rhythm? Start small, so small you can't talk yourself out of it. 5 push-ups, 10 minutes of reading, a single line in a journal. What matters is not the size of the action, but the commitment to repeat it. The mind resists giant leaps but warms to small steps, and small steps multiplied by time create transformation. Consistency also requires forgiveness. You will miss a day. You will stumble. The key is to return without delay or self-condemnation. I keep a simple rule: never miss twice. If life interrupts, I start again the very next day. That quick return keeps the chain alive and teaches the deeper lesson that success is not perfection. It is persistence. Over the years, I've discovered that environment shapes consistency as much as willpower. I place my running shoes by the door at night so the cue greets me at dawn. I keep a notebook on the pillow so I write before sleep. These small cues remove friction. They make the desired action the easiest action. Design your surroundings so that the right habit feels natural. As you think about the next 5 years, ask yourself, what small action, repeated daily, could change everything? Perhaps it's saving a few dollars, writing a paragraph, reaching out to one friend, reading 10 pages, praying for a few quiet minutes. Choose one. Commit to it. Let time and consistency do their quiet work. Look back at your own life for proof. Every major change, good or bad, likely grew from a series of small, repeated steps. Weight gain, debt, skill, friendship, wisdom. They all follow the law of accumulation. The question is not whether small things become big. They always do. The question is whether you will choose small things that build or small things that break. So tonight, as you lay out tomorrow's plan, remember this simple truth: greatness is rarely the result of one grand decision. It is the result of countless small ones faithfully repeated. That is the power of consistency. It turns ordinary choices into extraordinary outcomes, little things into big wins. Consistency is the bridge between intention and result. Most people dream, plan, even start, but they stop when the work feels ordinary. That pause is where potential quietly leaks away. The truth is simple: the small action you repeat long after excitement fades is the one that shapes your future. I first recognized this during a year when everything around me seemed unstable. Work projects shifted, friendships changed. Even the city I lived in felt temporary. At first, I tried to outthink the uncertainty, making big plans, chasing new opportunities. None of it settled me. What finally anchored me was not a grand breakthrough, but a single decision. I would hold to a few small, life-giving habits no matter what. 10 minutes of morning reading, a daily walk, one handwritten note each week to someone I cared about. They were tiny commitments, but they gave my days a rhythm when everything else wavered. Months later, when the storm had passed, those quiet habits had not only kept me steady, they had quietly moved me forward. That is the stealth power of consistency. It works while you aren't looking. Think about how compound interest works in finance. You put in a modest sum and let time do its patient multiplying. Consistency with your actions is compound interest for the soul. The return isn't measured in dollars, but in character, skill, relationships, and peace of mind. You may not notice the gain in a week or a month, but over years it becomes unmistakable. Take relationships. We often assume closeness depends on grand moments, holidays, vacations, dramatic gestures. Yet the couples who thrive, the families who remain connected, the friendships that last decades, all share one quiet trait: steady attention. It might be a nightly check in, a weekly dinner, a simple "how are you?" text every few days. I know a man who, for more than 30 years, has brewed morning coffee for his wife before she wakes. It takes 3 minutes, but that small act of daily care has spoken louder than 1,000 bouquets of flowers. Consistency turns affection into a fortress. The same law applies to professional growth. Early in my career, I envied colleagues who seemed to leap ahead with sudden promotions or brilliant ideas. Later, I discovered that most of those overnight successes had been showing up early, refining their skills, and learning a little more each day for years. One friend, now a respected architect, spent his lunch break sketching building designs. Just 15 minutes a day. Over time, his portfolio exploded with creativity and precision. When a major opportunity appeared, he was ready. Not because of luck, but because of quiet, repeated effort. Health offers another vivid example. I once met a 70-year-old marathon runner who laughed when I asked how he kept such stamina. "I just kept lacing my shoes," he said. "Some days I ran 5 miles, some days one, but I never stopped putting the shoes on." He understood that the victory isn't in a single race, but in the daily discipline that makes racing possible. Consistency turns small movement into lasting strength. But consistency isn't glamorous. That is its challenge. There's no instant applause for showing up at dawn to write a page or stretch your body. Some mornings you feel the pull of excuses. Too tired, too busy, too uninspired. This is where character is built. Each time you act despite feelings, you teach yourself a deeper truth: commitment is stronger than mood. And each time you return after a stumble, you learn that failure isn't final unless you refuse to start again. I've adopted a simple principle to keep myself on track: never miss twice. Life will interrupt even the best intentions. Travel, illness, unforeseen events, these come for everyone. Missing once is human, missing twice invites a slide. If I skip a workout today, I make sure tomorrow's happens no matter what. If I forget my evening reflection, I pick it up the next night. This small rule protects momentum and keeps guilt from hardening into defeat. Environment plays a quiet but crucial role. It is far easier to stay consistent when you design your surroundings to support the habit. I keep a book on my pillow so I read before sleep. I lay out running shoes by the door so I can't avoid seeing them in the morning. A musician friend keeps his guitar on a stand in the living room, never in a case, so it calls to him whenever he passes. Remove friction and you remove excuses. Some people argue that variety is the spice of life and worry that consistency means dull routine. But true consistency isn't about rigid repetition of every detail. It's about steadfast direction. You can change the route of your daily walk, the genre of your reading, the recipes you cook. The essence is that you keep showing up to move in the direction you value. Consistency is not prison. It is freedom from the chaos of constant indecision. Look at history for proof. Great artists, athletes, thinkers, nearly all were creatures of habit. Beethoven composed at the same time each morning. Maya Angelou rented a hotel room to write every day away from distraction. Olympic champions train through cold mornings and off seasons long before medals are awarded. Their genius is not only talent, but relentless repetition. The power of small, steady effort also reshapes the mind itself. Neuroscientists tell us that repeated actions carve neural pathways like trails through a forest. Walk a path often enough and it becomes easier, clearer, almost automatic. When you consistently practice gratitude, patience, or focus, you are literally rewiring your brain toward those qualities. What begins as discipline becomes default. 5 years from now, imagine where a single, consistent action could take you. 10 minutes of daily reading adds up to dozens of books. Saving a few dollars each day builds financial freedom. Practicing a musical instrument for 15 minutes can turn a beginner into a skilled performer. And because consistency compounds, the growth in later years far outpaces the early gains. The first year you may notice only subtle change. By the fifth, people around you will call it talent or luck. I have seen this play out in my own writing. At the start, I set a modest goal: 1 page a day. Some days the page was weak, some days strong, but the habit never stopped. After 3 years, those pages became several finished books. People asked how I found the time. I didn't find it. I created it by showing up, whether or not I felt inspired. Inspiration visited because I was present to receive it. So consider your own life. What quiet habit, if done every day without fanfare, would reshape the next decade? It might be as simple as a morning stretch, a brief journal entry, a nightly gratitude list, a consistent act of kindness. The size matters far less than the repeatability. Start small. Start now and guard the practice like a treasure. Consistency will make it grow. When the years pass, and they will, you will look back and see that greatness did not arrive in a single dramatic moment. It arrived in the ordinary mornings when you honored a commitment no one else was watching. It arrived in the evenings when you chose the next right step instead of the easy distraction. The little things became the big wins because you kept showing up. Consistency is like a quiet friend who walks beside you every day. You might not notice the distance you cover while you're talking and moving, but when you pause and look back, you realize how far you've traveled together. That is the secret most people miss. They imagine that success arrives in sudden leaps, a dramatic burst of fortune or brilliance. But the truth is almost always steadier and slower. It is the long companionship of repeated effort, the ordinary days, stacked one on another until they create something extraordinary. I remember a season when my own work felt stuck. I wanted bigger results, faster progress, something to prove that my efforts mattered. In my frustration, I almost abandoned a writing project I had started months earlier. Then I heard a line from an old mentor echoing in my mind. Never quit on a good idea during a down day. So I kept showing up, 1 page a day, even when the words felt clumsy. There were no crowds cheering, no instant rewards. But page by page, something happened. A year later, the manuscript was finished and eventually published, opening doors I could not have imagined at the start. The victory was not the burst of inspiration, but the decision to keep the daily rhythm when inspiration was absent. Consistency builds trust, first with yourself and then with others. Every time you keep a small promise to yourself, one workout, one budget review, one evening walk, you prove that your word is reliable. That reliability becomes confidence. People sense it. Opportunities follow it. I once worked with a colleague who never missed a deadline. He was not the most brilliant person in the room, but he was the most dependable. Over time, his reputation for reliability made him the go-to person for important projects, and he rose in his career while others with more raw talent drifted. Consistency is a currency. It buys credibility. Relationships depend on the same currency. We often talk about love as a feeling, but lasting love is a habit. It is the choice to show up, listen, and care again and again, especially when it would be easier to retreat. I think of an elderly couple in my neighborhood who walk hand in hand every evening. They don't rush. They talk quietly. That daily walk is more than exercise. It is a ritual of connection that has weathered decades of change. Their example reminds me that affection is proved not by grand declarations, but by steady presence. Money, too, rewards the consistent. Years ago, I set up an automatic transfer to savings every time I received a paycheck. It was a modest amount, almost laughably small at first. But month after month, year after year, it grew into a solid foundation. I never felt a dramatic pinch because the habit was automatic, and I never had to debate whether to save or spend. It just happened. That quiet consistency has given me freedom to pursue opportunities without fear. It wasn't a single financial windfall that built security. It was the drip, drip, drip of faithful deposits. Health follows the same principle. I once read about a man who lost over 100 pounds not by adopting an extreme diet, but by making one small change each month and never abandoning it. First, he stopped drinking sugary sodas. Later, he added a daily 15-minute walk. Next, he began cooking one healthy meal each evening. Each habit was tiny on its own. Together, repeated over years, they transformed his body and energy. The impressive part was not the scale of the changes, but the steady refusal to quit. Consistency also reshapes the mind itself. Neuroscientists explain that repeated thoughts and actions create new neural pathways, making the chosen behavior easier and more automatic over time. In other words, every time you keep a small commitment, you are literally rewiring your brain towards success. I have felt this in my own life. When I first began a morning reflection practice, it required real effort. Now it feels as natural as brushing my teeth. What once demanded discipline has become identity. Still, consistency is not a straight road. You will have days when you falter, when sickness or travel or sheer fatigue interrupts your pattern. The key is how quickly you return. I hold to a simple rule: never miss twice. If I skip today, tomorrow I return without guilt or negotiation. That single guideline has saved many habits from disappearing. It reminds me that progress is not perfection, it is persistence. Environment plays a quiet but powerful role. I arrange my surroundings to make good habits the path of least resistance. Books stay within arm's reach of my favorite chair. Healthy snacks sit at the front of the fridge. My running shoes rest by the door. These small cues remove friction and invite the action I want to repeat. Willpower is limited. Design is constant. Another insight I've learned is that consistency doesn't have to mean monotony. You can keep the core practice while allowing variety around the edges. For instance, I commit to exercise each morning, but I might choose a walk one day, light stretching the next, or a jog on the weekend. The habit is movement. The method can change. This flexibility keeps the practice fresh without losing the steady heartbeat of daily action. Look around and you'll see that every lasting achievement, from a thriving business to a flourishing garden, rests on the same law. Seeds germinate because someone keeps watering. A company grows because someone keeps serving customers day after day. Skills deepen because someone keeps practicing when no one applauds. Consistency is the unseen architect behind every visible success. I sometimes think of consistency as an investment in future gratitude. The small effort you give today becomes tomorrow's thank you. The $10 saved, the page written, the call made, the push-up done. They accumulate until your future self looks back with quiet appreciation and says, "I'm glad you didn't quit when it seemed too small to matter." Imagine 5 years from now if you start a single steady habit today. 10 pages of reading each night could mean hundreds of books. A daily act of kindness could weave a network of friendships stronger than you have ever known. A simple evening walk could transform your health. People might call you lucky, gifted, or disciplined, but you will know the truth. You simply kept showing up. So when the next morning comes and your alarm sounds, remember that the choice you make in those first few minutes carries the weight of years. Whether you stretch or stay in bed, write a paragraph or reach for the phone, invest or spend, you are not just choosing for today, you are voting for the person you will become. Consistency gives those votes power. Little things become big wins because time multiplies them. It is a quiet multiplication without headlines or fanfare, but it is unstoppable. Each consistent step is a brick. Each brick builds a wall. Each wall shapes a home. That is how lives of substance are built brick by brick, day by day, long after the thrill has faded and only commitment remains. Consistency is the quiet architect of every remarkable life. By now, you can see how the smallest actions repeated faithfully create an invisible current that carries you forward. What begins as a single step becomes a path, then a roadway, then a bridge strong enough to hold the weight of your dreams. And because the process is so gradual, most people underestimate it until the results are impossible to ignore. I look back on my own years of steady habits and marvel at how ordinary they seemed at the time. There was no applause when I sat to write a page each morning, no headlines when I brewed tea instead of buying another coffee, no crowd cheering when I went for a walk after dinner. Yet those small actions have given me health, clarity, financial freedom, and friendships that feel like treasure. Nothing about those moments felt dramatic, but together they became the story of my life. That is the power of consistency, the day-to-day commitment that quietly outperforms grand plans and sudden inspiration. One of the greatest gifts of consistent effort is trust. Trust in yourself and trust from others. When you keep a promise to yourself every day, you build a deep inner confidence that no speech can give. You know that when you say you'll do something, you will. That certainty frees you from the fear of failure because you understand that showing up matters more than perfection. And when others see that reliability, they begin to trust you too. Employers, friends, and partners naturally rely on the person who follows through. Over time, that reputation opens doors that talent alone cannot. Consider how this principle plays out in relationships. The people we love are not asking for grand displays, they are asking for presence. A consistent text to a friend, a nightly conversation with a spouse, a weekly call to a parent. These are the bricks of lasting connection. I remember watching an elderly couple at a park bench every morning, sipping coffee and sharing quiet conversation. They were not doing anything dramatic, yet their daily ritual radiated a bond stronger than most grand declarations of love. It was the simple act of showing up for each other again and again that built their enduring closeness. Health, too, rewards this steady loyalty. Our bodies respond far more to daily habits than to sporadic extremes. A single workout will not build strength, but regular movement, no matter how modest, reshapes energy, posture, and longevity. I have met people who reversed years of poor health not with radical diets or punishing regimens, but by adding 1 or 2 small practices and never abandoning them: a morning stretch, a daily walk, a commitment to drink more water. The changes were slow, but the outcomes were profound. Consistency is the quiet medicine that keeps paying dividends. Money follows the same pattern. A friend once told me he and his wife began their marriage by saving only a few dollars each week. It felt trivial, almost silly. Yet decades later, that small, faithful habit had grown into a foundation that supported their children's education, their own retirement, and the freedom to travel and give generously. There was no windfall, no winning ticket, just the unwavering choice to save a little and let time multiply it. But perhaps the most profound transformation occurs in the mind and spirit. Repeated actions carve pathways in the brain. Each time you practice gratitude, patience, or focus, you strengthen those neural trails. Over time, those qualities become part of you, not as effort, but as instinct. The person who chooses daily gratitude eventually lives with a natural sense of abundance. The one who practices daily reflection carries clarity even in chaos. Consistency shapes character until virtue feels like second nature. Of course, staying the course is not without challenge. Life brings interruptions, illness, travel, unexpected crises. That is why consistency must be paired with grace. Missing a day is not failure, refusing to return is. I have learned to hold a simple rule, never miss twice. If life knocks me off track today, I begin again tomorrow without guilt. The habit is not about flawless streaks, it is about the relentless return. That gentle persistence keeps momentum alive. Environment matters as well. We are shaped by the spaces we inhabit. Place reminders where your future self can see them, a journal on the pillow, running shoes by the door, a healthy snack at the front of the fridge. Make the right action the easiest action. This small design reduces the friction that can derail even strong intentions. Consistency thrives when preparation removes excuses. As you imagine the next 5 years, picture what a single small habit could create if you simply refuse to quit. 10 pages of reading each night become libraries of knowledge. A few dollars saved each day become a cushion of freedom. One daily act of kindness becomes a legacy of love. You do not need to predict every detail of the journey. You need only to begin and to continue. The temptation will always be to wait for motivation. But motivation is a visitor, not a resident. Consistency is the resident. When you act first, motivation often follows, surprised and impressed that you kept the appointment without it. I cannot count the times I have started a task unwilling and ended inspired simply because I began. Action creates energy, repetition sustains it. Look back 5 years. Remember how quickly that time passed. The next 5 will move just as swiftly. The habits you nurture now will decide what those years deliver. Will you let them slip by with scattered effort, or will you plant seeds of steady growth? The choice is quiet but powerful. Every day is a vote for the person you are becoming. One day people may call you lucky or gifted or disciplined. They will see the results: health, skill, stability, relationships, and search for a secret. The secret is no secret at all. It is the mornings you laced your shoes when no one cared, the evenings you wrote a page when no one read, the gentle words you offered when no one thanked you. The little things became big wins because you did them again and again until they built a life that looks, from the outside, extraordinary. So tonight, decide on one small action that honors the life you want. Do it tomorrow. Do it the next day. Protect it like a promise. Consistency is not a cage, it is the key to freedom. It frees you from the chaos of moods and the weight of regret. It frees you to create a future you will be grateful to inhabit. The power of consistency is not in what you do once, but in what you are willing to do always. Start small, stay steady, and watch as the little things you choose today grow quietly, inevitably, into the big wins of tomorrow.